prisoners, comrades.
Come on, motherfucker!
Modern Warfare 2 is better than Modern Warfare 3. So a few weeks ago, backwards compatibility came to Modern Warfare 3 on the Xbox One. I'm not exactly sure what time, I can't be fucked to look it up, but since then I've been playing for maybe about a week or two, leveling up. I've been playing on 360 since it received a spike in player count. So since Modern Warfare 3 has came back into the light a little bit, I figured this would be a good time to kind of cover a topic that I've had in the back of my head for a long while now, and that is my opinion on Modern Warfare 2 being better than Modern Warfare 3. I'm sure you could apply this to every recent COD in the series, but I'm specifically covering these two because they're in the same series, quote unquote. I don't really do these type of videos often. I don't really do any type of video often because I haven't uploaded in the past 6 months, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what we're going to do here is I'm going to attempt to give you guys a comparison visually and mechanically on both of these games and kind of try to explain to you why I believe that this game is better than this game. Other than a few bullet points that I got written down right here, I don't really have a script for this, so please bear with me if I begin to monologue a little bit. So if you followed me for any amount of time, you would know, just for a little backstory on me, if you don't, I am a big Modern Warfare 2 nerd. I would say the majority of my YouTube videos, and the reason I started making YouTube videos was on Modern Warfare 2 itself. I played the hell out of that game. I probably played more on Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer than I have any other game. I even went as far as to import a copy of Modern Warfare 2 in Japanese from my PS3, which was not cheap and was not the best purchase I've ever made in my life, nor the best video I've ever uploaded. I am absolutely about to lose my It doesn't say new, it's actually a padlock. The font is, oh my god. Oh shit. This game-winning kill, I'm gonna Nonetheless, I think this just goes to show how far I actually really love this game. I constantly brought it up in other videos, and if you followed me for any amount of time, you would know how much I really love this game. I also followed very closely to the trick-shotting scene in Modern Warfare 2 and other Call of Duties, but Modern Warfare 2 specifically, because I think if nothing else, it gives you a very good idea of how the mechanics flow in the game. You have to kind of have a good idea of how the game's inner workings actually go and how the map verticality goes, so I feel like that gives me a good point to discuss in this video. I think the easiest point we can start this video off with is the visuals in these two games. If you put these two games side by side, I think you would be hard pressed to say that Modern Warfare 3 is a sequel to Modern Warfare 2. Do you call a sequel the third thing in the series? I don't know. Modern Warfare 2's visuals are clean, colorful, they just pop, and I think they arguably push this engine to its limits at its time. I think it's arguably one of the best, if not the best looking games in the series. I think it pushed the engine to its limits for its time, and that's not even mentioning the fact that this game runs at a clean 60 FPS, which really no other big shooters on the console were doing, such as Battlefield. Sure, looking back on it today, you can see some of the rougher edges that this game presents, but I still think, even today, it is really hard to say that this is a bad looking game. Gun models and animations are very attractive, textures are very high quality, map design is just very believable for the scenarios that they're in. Now let's take a look at Modern Warfare 3, and immediately you're gonna see this weird greenish tint that's over every single map in the game, just overall inside of the color palette. I don't know why they went with this. The gun models also, to me, kind of look a little more simplistic, a little more boxy. I don't think it's necessarily a terrible thing, but it's definitely noticeable. I mean, if we just switch back and forth here, look at the immediate difference in just the colors and overall design. It just looks drab, grayed out, washed out, boring. Maybe they were just doing this to fit the warfare atmosphere of the game, but I personally think it was a choice for the worst. Taking a look at the gun models here, you can see that Modern Warfare 2 is just very smooth, rounded, clean. I think it's easy to say that the Modern Warfare 2 Intervention is a much better looking gun. Not to say Modern Warfare 3 is as bad looking, but definitely not something I would personally say is an improvement over Modern Warfare 2. Since we covered the look at the guns, I think now would be a good time to talk about the actual mechanics of how the game plays, and this is a hard one to really describe until you actually play it for yourself, but if you've played these two titles for any amount of time, I think you could obviously tell the difference. Imagine this, you're in an elevator and right before you're able to walk out into the hallway or wherever you're at, you run into the closed doors of the elevator, briefly before being able to walk straight out. I think that's the best way I can sum up the mechanics in Modern Warfare 3 and how they feel. Anything you do with climbing, sprinting, changing weapons affects the amount of time it takes before you're able to shoot your weapon again. And this can overall lead to a clunky feeling inside of the mechanics. It's essentially like trying to open a window, but instead of just being able to slide that window straight up, it kind of gets stuck and you have to push on it for a second. To casual players, it may just seem like a small detail, but when you actually get into it, it makes it harder. This was infamously known in the Call of Duty titles as YY, which essentially meant if you double tapped your switch weapons, you would immediately be able to shoot afterwards, and newer Call of Duty titles seem to have phased this out over time, besides Treyarch, which always seemed to have kept it in, which I think also kind of attributed to Treyarch games just being more popular overall with their overall design and flow of the way the games actually played, plus they're the only original Call of Duty developers left. If I didn't mention it before, the Infinity Ward that created Modern Warfare 3 and the future titles afterwards is not the same Infinity Ward that created Modern Warfare 2. You can look it up yourself if you're interested, but to keep it short, basically the team behind Modern Warfare 2 sued Activision with payment issues that came following the release of Modern Warfare 2, leading them to leave and create Respawn Entertainment, which created the future Titanfall series, which may have attributed to this whole game feeling substantially different from Modern Warfare 2 in mechanics and, more notably to me, the map design. I think we can't talk about the map design before first talking about High Rise, which I think can be one of the main focuses of the points that I'm going to try to make within this. High Rise was not only a map with multiple points of travel that was well thought out, it also had little Easter eggs inside of it. The crane that you could get to look across the entire map, or you could walk across this platform risking getting killed to get on top of this rooftop, which also displayed the entire map. Everything from the plane that you could get on top of in Terminal to the favela buildings that you could consistently weave in and out of. There was a big focus made on replayability and verticality in these maps, and that seemingly was stripped from Modern Warfare 3. While some of the maps are very fun in Modern Warfare 3, it seems that they took less of an approach of verticality and just small, compact spaces. What I mean is there's fun maps such as Hard Hat, but they're just these lanes that you run straight through to get straight to the other enemy spawn. There's just not a lot of creative thought put behind these maps. Sure, Modern Warfare 3 has fun maps, say like Arcaded, but when you compare this map to say something like High Rise, the most notable thing I can think of in the map that makes it stand out was the little glass you could break where you could run across to this platform to go into the middle of the map. There just isn't a ton of creativity and variety going on to these maps. I can barely remember the names of them. To me, the majority of Modern Warfare 3's maps are almost like Modern Warfare 2's Wasteland map. It was just a flat plain with some textured terrain, maybe a couple hills you could climb on top of, maybe a couple of sniper spots, kinda, sorta, something. But overall, the maps just feel boring and uninspired, which is kind of strange. If you take a look at the Modern Warfare 3 DLC map, they're pretty interesting and they're actually very fun to play. From what I can remember, I didn't play them too much. The biggest issue with them being then, as well, even more so today, is the player base. If you don't have the map pack or you don't have a certain map pack that somebody else is, you won't be playing with that player base whatsoever. So if you basically own as much as one map pack, you cannot play with any of the players that don't have any of the map packs at all, possibly missing out on thousands of extra players unless you disable the map packs. It puts you in a completely different playlist, and this is a completely broken philosophy that's even still being used today in concept with Black Ops 4 coming out, which is a whole nother can of worms we're not going to get into. To me, basically, the map design was the final nail in the coffin for me. I don't know. I just didn't feel like the game had the same passion put behind it as Modern Warfare 2. And I feel like it was the beginning of something that really shows the decline and just the passion and fun creative process that went into these Call of Duty titles later on in the release years. It started becoming less of a focus on fun gameplay and more of a focus on how much they could churn out and split up to make money off of. Every new Call of Duty release is basically, we'll take this feature, remove it, replace it with another feature, such as Modern Warfare 3's shotgun implementation as being a primary, when in Modern Warfare 2 they were just secondary weapons. And there's more subjective things we could cover within the series, such as Modern Warfare 3's explosives being absolutely nerfed, or some of the death streaks being rearranged around, that I kind of personally feel like takes away from the experience, but that could be more of a subjective thing. Call of Duty has just become in more recent years more of the same, just a shooting gallery with a different title slapped on it. And I think it's really sad because I feel like games like COD 4, world at war in Modern Warfare 2 really showed the potential that these games had and just the creativity behind the studios that were creating them, and I feel like all of that passion is just been stripped away. And while Modern Warfare 3 isn't necessarily as good a game to me as Modern Warfare 2, I still think it's fun to play. I just can't consider calling it a newer title in the series. A newer title, a sequel, is something that improves on the original formula, makes it better, tweaks it. But I feel like all they did in Modern Warfare 3 was dumb it down and take things away. And that's really all I can say about it. A couple of the more notable things I feel like Modern Warfare 3 did worse in terms of gunplay as far as Modern Warfare 2 goes is nerfed the explosives almost completely. This could be a subjective thing, but rocket launchers are virtually useless to anything but aircrafts. Take that into Modern Warfare 2 where there's actually a perk to have more damage with your rocket launchers and explosives. This could also be carried over to the grenades in Modern Warfare 3, not counting the C4 because that is still just an overpowered powerhouse. It almost felt like Modern Warfare 3's grenades were useless. This also kind of transfers over to, more notably to me, the shotguns. No longer being secondary weapons in Modern Warfare 2 where they were arguably way more powerful. Now they're a primary in Modern Warfare 3, and not only are they a primary, they're less powerful. I swear, it is very hit or miss to use these shotguns in this game. One second you may think you have a good idea of how it works, and the next you'll be right in front of an enemy hit marking them. And as soon as you hit mark them, you're basically screwed, especially with the lever and pump action shotguns. It almost makes you ask the question, what's the point of using this when I could just use an SMG at effectively the same, if not more range, and get a better use out of it? I'm kind of finishing this video right now in a mobile setup, so I'm gonna try to finish it up quick here with my final thoughts. Right now, Modern Warfare 3 is backwards compatible on Xbox One, and Modern Warfare 2 isn't. You may wonder why that is, but I think the main issue may be licensing, or just that they don't want to get into any more kind of legal trouble. After going through that whole debacle with the original Infinity Ward, I just feel like for some reason that has an issue with them publishing it. As of right now, I think that Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 3 are the only titles backwards compatible on Xbox One, but I could be wrong about that. There was a little bit more I wanted to add here as far as gameplay and dialogue goes, but I'm not able to really record any gameplay with the situation I'm in right now, and I just wanted to go ahead and get this video out to you guys, so I'm sorry about that, but I hope you still enjoyed it. If you follow Call of Duty for any amount of time, or you have any opinions on this topic, I would love to see them in the comments, so drop any of your thoughts, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks this about the series, and I will definitely be sure to read all of them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm going ahead and closing it up here. I didn't want to put this at the beginning of the video to take away from it too much, but I know you guys are probably wondering, if you followed me for a while, where the hell I've been for the past half a year. And to be honest with you, I want to talk about this a little bit more in a video, but I've just been really demotivated and busy. Work takes up a lot of my time, and you know my channel revolved a lot around Call of Duty, and with each new release coming out, I felt less motivated to play the game. In turn, less video creativity, and it's really hard to just make videos for an audience that's not really there, but I do appreciate you guys being around, asking me what's going on, and being here to support this video. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm going to again talk about this hopefully in a little more detail in a further video, but I just wanted to give you guys a real explanation and an apology. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching the video. It's been T, and this is a coffee mug. That's a little hypocritical.